Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Astotra Sutashi Shimadesi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnu Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Astotra Sutashi Mad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Shishi Shri Rupa Sanatana Bad Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bad Das Raghunath Sasa Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Premisako Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Syamakunda Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, Hare Krishna. Today I'll be speaking on Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 6. text number 7. Just find a verse real quick. Chapter 6 is dealing, for the most part, is dealing with Ashtanga Yoga, controlling the mind. And this particular text we're speaking on how to attain the Supersoul, the all-pervasive Supersoul. Okay, so I'll recite the Sanskrit. Chitatmana prasantasya Paramatma saham samahitaha shitoshna sukha dukeshu tathamana manapamonyaha. Jita atmanaha, of one who has conquered the mind. Prashantasya, who has attained tranquility by such control over the mind. Paramatma, the Supersoul. Samahitaha, approached completely. Shita, in cold. Ushna, heat. Sukha, happiness. Dukeshu, in distress. Tatha, also. Mana, in honor. And apamanyaho, in dishonor. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So the translation and comments by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. For one who has conquered the mind, the Supersoul has already reached. For he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. And the purport, actually, every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. When the mind is misled by the external illusory energy, one becomes entangled in material activities. Therefore, as soon as one's mind is controlled through one of the yoga systems, one should be considered to have already reached the destination. One has to abide by superior dictation, and when one's mind is fixed on the superior nature, he has no alternative but to follow the dictation of the Supreme. The mind must admit some superior dictation and follow it. The effect of controlling the mind is that one automatically follows the dictation of Paramatma, or Supersoul. Because this transcendental position is at once achieved by one who is Krishna conscious, the devotee of the Lord is unaffected by dualities of material existence, namely distress and happiness, cold and heat, etc. This state is practical samadhi, or absorption in the Supreme. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurvan Militam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakopatrubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Paraya Krishna Krishna. Okay, so in this verse and next two verses, number 8 and 9, Krishna is describing the symptoms of a person who is situated in advanced yoga. It's called the Yoga Rudha, the one who's able to conquer and control the mind. And the main topic of today's verse is actually attaining the Supersoul. And Supersoul is known as Paramatma, the Kshetrigyam of the body, all-pervasive, the knower of all bodies. And there are two souls within the individual living entity. The first one is our individual, our jiva, our soul. And the next one is the plenary expansion of Krishna, which is the Supersoul. And the Supersoul is, the difference between two is that the Supersoul is present within all living entities, whereas our individual soul is only within one particular living entity. So this is the main difference. And our body is like a temple which is being created and supported by the Supersoul. So the example that Srila Prabhupada gives is when you have a person who's growing different vegetables or fruits in the land, and he can declare that this is the type of vegetables I grow on my land, and he knows of it. But if you take, of course, nowadays it's different, but if you see the king can say, this is what I'm growing, and those are my people within the kingdom. They grow in this vegetable is this thing. So he knows about what's going on and in different properties, not only his own, but in different properties. And it's actually a pretty, well, learning about Supersoul is a very interesting, fascinating experience. I was distributing books today in La Jolla Cove, and I was at the table. We do it from the table, and I was trying to start people by calling them to the table. And I met this nice guy, and I tried to call him to the table, but he ignored me, continued walking. And eventually, for some reason, in a few seconds, he turns around and walks to the table. And he comes to the table, and he just looks at me like I'm kind of like not understanding what I'm doing, but I have to come to the table. What's going on here, you know? And we start talking. I show him the books, and he's very favorable. He shows interest. He's very interested to get them. And eventually, he takes these two big sets and gives a nice donation. And we talk for like maybe 20 minutes. And he asked me a question. And the real question that I have to ask you is that how come that I turned around and just got back to you? What happened? I didn't even realize that. I just followed, you know. I just came back to the table, you know. And I told him, this is the dweller in the body, the Supersoul. This is what inspired you to come, you know. Krishna says in 13th chapter, Upadashtana Mantacha, Bharata Bhakta Maheshwara, Paramatma Tichipiktor, Dehismin Purushopara. He says that yet in this body there's another transcendental enjoyer who's the Supreme Lord. And his function is he's a permitter, he's the supreme permitter, and he's the overseer. He's known as the Supersoul within the body. So this is what happens. Sometimes we're able to listen to instructions of the Supersoul because he's trying to help us. You know, Krishna is always trying to help his devotees to bring us back to the spiritual world. But for the most part, we're trying to dominate material nature. We're trying to reject the instructions of the Supersoul, and we're just trying to act independently. And therefore, we're so confused. We're suffering so many miseries, you know, coming from our own body, our mind, coming from all the living entities and this material nature. But in actuality, Krishna is always giving us instructions. We just don't notice it, and he's always giving them from within, and from without through other living entities, other people. Supreme Personality of God has different energies. He's the controller of both spiritual and material energies, and is all-pervading. And also met another person today on book distribution. It was kind of a very mystical experience, actually, because I was speaking with one Mataji about the books. She was Spanish speaking, and I was explaining the absolute truth, this Bhagavad Gita, and she was interested. She took a few books, and I told her, "Yeah, my name is Dimitri. I'm just a monk." And she said, "Oh, really? Guess what my name is?" She said. And I said, "Well, I don't know. How can I guess your name? There's so many names out there." And I just kind of said something. The first thing that came to my mind, I said, "Maybe Olivia. Your name's Olivia." And she said, "Nah, not Olivia. I'm Adriana, but close." And then she walks away with the books, gives a donation, and the next person comes to the table. And we're talking about the books she's interested too. And I introduced myself, and she said, "My name is Olivia. I'm here to get some books." And she got a book, and also,
You see the future.
That's not me. The Supersoul. Yeah, this is book distribution could be very enlivening, very mystical. Like one time we had a famous book distributor. His name is Mahotsaha Prabhu, visiting us in San Diego. He was actually able to distribute over 3,000 books in a day.
Wow.
Yeah, about 30 Bhagavatam sets in one day. It's pretty far out. And he was saying that one day they were distributing books in Atlanta, and they were distributing books all together. And what they would do is they would have they would chant before, they would walk with the Harinam party and distribute books. And one time the experience was so spiritual, that the place where they would have a table, it was just like in a special kind of, I'm not exactly remembering the term he used, but it was just like people would come into that zone and they would take books, no matter who they are, what they do. They would take books. They were just kind of very intense spiritual energy, like what is it called when yeah. It's really amazing. And one of the instructions of the middle chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about how if we are intelligent, we come to serve Krishna. But if our intelligence is lost, we surrender to demigods, And we follow particular rules and regulations that help us develop faith in a demigod. And Krishna gives us that strong faith to worship a particular deity. But he also says that in reality, you worship me, but just you do it in the wrong way. He says, and living entities, as well as the demigods, they also part and parcel of Krishna. They also subordinate to his will. So we can't come to demigods and ask for different things from the demigods if it's not granted by Krishna. Krishna has to be the one who bestows the benediction, gives the chance for that desire to be fulfilled. So we should come to Krishna. That is the best way. We shouldn't worshiping demigods in the wrong way. Another time when I was distributing books, and I'm talking to this one lady, and she's kind of spiritual. She's practicing a spiritual life. She told me when she was living, I told her Hare Krishna, and she said Om Shivaya Namaha. Shivaya Namaha. So people are worshiping demigods, and it's compared to Srila Prabhupada actually compares it to watering, when we water the particular let's say tree, and when we want to feed the tree, we should feed the root instead of the branches or leaves. Or when we're trying to feed the stomach, we should go to the stomach, put food into the mouth instead of on the hand or on the head. So this is the comparison that Prabhupada gives in relation to demigod or worship, or coming in full consciousness of Krishna. And Krishna does not approve. Actually, Krishna does not approve worship of demigods. He says, "Sadhi bhuta didaiva mam, sadhi yagyam chaya vidu, prayana kale bichi mam, te vidur yukta chitasaha." Those in full consciousness of me who know me as the Supreme Lord to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So, the real knowledge is how we distinguish between the soul and the supersoul, how we understand the difference. And when we become realized of the supersoul being pervasive in this material world, we understand. We see people, all living entities. Doesn't matter if it's a well-wisher to us, if it's a friend, if it's an enemy, as equal, because spiritually we are equal. There's no difference, no difference even from a small ant and me. We all part and parcels of Krishna. So actually, I'm not very familiar with this idea and cultural difference, but in India, when you host people, I hear it all the time. I didn't really come to an experience, but when you have people, even if they envious, even if they're your enemies, they come to your house, that you should still treat them with respect. You offer them foodstuffs, a place to sit, and the basic comforts. But I've heard that I think it's in Germany, when you have a person staying with you as a guest for 3 days, he's a guest. But after 3 days, he has to work. Now he has to work. So. Yeah, as I mentioned, this chapter is dealing with Ashtanga Yoga, starting from text number 10, when Krishna is describing that we should have an equal mind, seeing pebbles or stones, different living entities, depending on their dress or covering. We should still see them with the equal mind. And he is describing about what is the process of Ashtanga Yoga is, how we can engage mind and body in self-realization, in focusing on the Supreme. First of all, of course, we should be free from desires of possessiveness. And he says that to practice this Ashtanga Yoga, we should go to a secluded place. We should go from family to a secluded place, in where we can be by ourselves. We should sit firmly, as it describes this in the 11 to 12 text. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and covered with a deerskin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high or too low. It's very precise, and should be situated in a second place. The yogi should sit it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind and senses activities, fixing the mind on one point. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is compared to common men, like us. So, and when it comes to practicing Ashtanga Yoga, in the end of this chapter, he says that actually this is very impractical. For this age, this is very impractical. Yeah.
What does Ashtanga mean?
It means realizing God through practicing this eightfold yoga system, yama, niyama. When we
That's in the Gita?
yeah, it's also described. Yeah, and pretty much the experience, the practices that we do, breathing, breathing exercises, sitting postures, and fixing our mind, meditation state. As I mentioned here, we should sit, being undisturbed in a place of pilgrimage, somewhere far away from disturbances of the city. And we should follow the rules and regulations too. We should control our senses. That's the idea. We should control the senses, and we should become desirelessness. But as we all know, the real desirelessness is when we desire to serve Krishna. It's not when we are trying to suppress the desires, because eventually, as Krishna mentions, that even if you try to control the desires, but you still have the interest, the inclination to enjoy something, be that enjoy through hearing or your tongue or seeing, you become deviated. You fall down, and it's especially in this age. It's impractical. This is not what we should be doing, and we should really believe what Arjuna is saying, because it's a very great personality. Comes from a royal family. He's very advanced in many ways, and even he says that we can't do that. It's very difficult. The mind is like it's like a wind. You can't just trust the mind. Srila Prabhupada says that if you want to compromise with the mind, if you want to be friends with the mind, be sure that it will cheat you in the end. It will cheat you in the end. It will not be such a good friend to you. And in the previous text, also it is described that your mind can be your friend, or you can be your greatest enemy. And it's not fun when your mind is the greatest enemy, because how can we expect advancement if we have an disturbed mind, which is always giving us problems? So we fix the mind. We're trying to understand the Supersoul, focus on superior nature, and what is the benefit, and how we can actually, how do we do this? How do we fix on the Supersoul? How do we attain it? And the best practice for this age is Hari Nama, Hari Nama, Hari Nama eva kevalam, kalonasti eva nasti eva nasti eva gatira anayata. This means that we should, in this age of Kali, we should chant the holy name. We should chant the holy name, chant the holy name. And this is the only way for means of realization. The only way, the only way. Chant the holy name of the Lord Hari. And also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also describes that if you the process for self-realization in his instructions, he says this is Chaita Darpana Marjanam. He says that we should purify, cleanse the heart from all the contaminations, from all the dust that is definitely there. That covering is definitely there for all of us. And we should just chant Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And this can help us greatly. So, in another way, how we can see the Supersoul is through a representative of Krishna. Externally, we can see Supersoul is as a spiritual teacher. He comes here to represent Krishna, and he, whether it's a Diksha or Shiksha Guru, he could be seen as a Supersoul. He can give us instructions by which we can attain Krishna, especially in the beginning stages when we are not advanced in spiritual life. It's very important to have somebody who can guide us, and throughout the whole way actually can do it by ourselves. So, but when our mind becomes more in line with the scripture, when we become the Bhagavad, we live what the scriptures are teaching us, then we can see the soul everywhere. It's all pervasive, you know. It's literally everywhere, and it's not so difficult to understand. Everywhere you look, all the material spiritual objects, this is the all-pervasive Supersoul. But this level is not so easy to attain. It's a Brahma Bhuta stage in which we see ourselves as the Uttamatikari, you know, when we equally treat everybody, and when we understand that everything belongs to Krishna. I'm the servant. That's it. We don't distinguish between the persons, you know. And the effect that we get from controlling the mind is the sense of tranquility. This is the peace that we get. This is calm state without any care and any worry. And when we close our eyes, and what do we hear? We hear the mind ringing, looking for things to catch on, you know, in the past, in the future. Prabhupada would say that if you mode of ignorance is when we live in the past, mode of passion is when we live in the future, and mode of goodness is when we live in the present. You know, so when we close our eyes, we should, if we actually achieve that level of Brahma Bhuta, we don't hear the mind, we hear the Supersoul, and that's a direct engagement. You know, so, but of course we have to be very advanced. We have to be very realized, self-realized, and tranquility means satisfaction. You know, it means tripta by jnana and then by vijnana, and before the mind actually becomes satisfied, it has to be trained. Because if we don't train the mind, how can we expect that it's going to be our best friend? And training of the mind is in some ways, as mentioned by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you would say that you should beat the mind with a shoe 100 times in the morning and 100 times before you go to rest. This should help. And I remember listening in class in Russian, and the Russian devotees, they took it very directly, seriously, you know, and they started beating the mind in the morning. And I mean, you know, this is actually, it's in some ways you can become distracted, you know, when you beat the mind. It's you can, if you're thinking about something negative, if you're stuck on a certain point, if your mind is disturbed, beat the mind, you definitely get off that platform, you know. So in many ways it makes sense. But the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Karishi Vachanam Tava, he says, my dear Krishna, unfallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory. And I achieve your mercy, and I'm ready, I'm prepared to follow your instructions, he says. So if we act according to the instruction of the Supreme Lord, then we become liberated servants of the Supreme. And that's what we're looking for in this practice, you know. Because if we're serving Maya, it means bondage. It means that we're going to be just trapped in the material existence. But if we choose to serve the Supreme, and then we become liberated. And this conception, this illusory conception of people that say that this is I mind conception principle, it's not helpful, because you see your wife, your children, your house, and you think that this belongs to you, and from this develops a false identification. You do not identify with the real you. You think that you're this body, you're this owner. But in actuality, this is the reason why we're here, the reason why we fall down from the spiritual world. So living entities, spirit souls, and material body is like a subtle or gross covering for them. It's like a dress. Prabhupada compares it to a dress. And material body we can't see. It's there. It's a gross body. It's visible to us. But subtle body we can see. And it's like we all have the intelligence and the mind, but it's not possible for us to see it, but we have it. So this is your subtle body. And in the conditioned stage, we are being dominated by material modes of nature. And material modes of nature are compared to ropes. And when they rope you to a certain mode, it's very difficult to get out. You become like a puppet in their hands. And there's a picture in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure you've seen it, when the modes are playing with these two conditioned souls.
What are they playing with?
With the conditioned souls, they're playing with them. They rope them to certain behavior, and certain act. Material modes. There's a text. There's a sattvat sanjaya te jnanam rajasalobha evacha. Pramada mahotamaso bhavata jnanam evacha. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops, Krishna says. Meaning that we become seekers. We start to be interested in matters of self-realization. We sattvic, we understand that there's consequence for everything. So we have a healthy approach to life. But then Krishna says from the mode of passion develops greed. So people are becoming very greedy. They're competing. They looking to get to the to the wealth, to the fame first, and they're ready to step over everybody else. And from the mode of ignorance develops madness, foolishness, and illusion. And people they're not even understanding who they are. They're not understanding. It's a life of an animal. People are just instinctually, they just satisfy the basic needs, and that's all they're interested in. And when I first came to America, I was really shocked by seeing, when I first went to LA, I was like, what's going on in this city? LA. Homeless people outside, I was really shocked,
Where are you from?
I'm from Russia.
You sound so American, though.
So I went to LA and I seen so many homeless people, and I was like, what's going on? Because in Russia you don't really see this many people, this many homeless. And yeah, you can see this. This is it's before your eyes,
Moscow? Where are you from?
Moscow. Because in Moscow it's so cold, you can't really live on the street because you have to go underground to hide. Especially this time of when this year is actually very cold, one of the coldest and longest winters in Russia. It's getting really really bad. Summer comes very late these days. So yeah, as a result of this material modes, we just struggle for existence, and it's not a fun life when we don't know what is that truth we're seeking for. So we can feel the modes even in our, especially as devotees, we can feel the attraction to them. We can feel the reactions of the modes of nature. And it's simple as if we're feeling happy, that means we're in the mode of goodness. If we're feeling agitated, that means we're in the mode of passion. And if we're feeling passive and lazy, that means we're in the mode of ignorance. And that prevails, And yeah, how we perceive life is exactly in which mode we're situated. But of course, they get mixed in. They make mixed in all the time, since they're spinning. And at some point, we can become, heroes of our will. We can come out of bed, and we will be ready to, to conquer the world. We're ready to really just become the doers. We achieve many things. But on the other day, on the other occasion, we can sleep for 10 hours and become very lazy and can't get up from bed. So this is the modes. They are highly influencing our life. And Srila Prabhupada says that that the most fortunate people are those who come to understand Krishna. What is Krishna? Who is Krishna? He is. He says that to become free from the illusory energy it means to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and agree to act according to His order. That's what he says. And actually, material body and material mind is that we acquire from material association is very foreign to us. It's not who we are. So that means that we should make the best. They say the best. Use of a bad bargain with this mind. It was a bad bargain. You know, it's a bad bargain, but we should try to utilize it in the purpose of attaining self-realization. That's the idea. And the Lord is always eager to take us back to the spiritual world, but we're just not hearing. We're just not hearing. We're just engaged in sense gratification, thinking that we can find happiness here. Rejecting His association continuously. And I think I mentioned in the last time, the modes of nature, they're actually unforgiving. Whatever you do in this material world, it's a simple law, just action and reaction. They're not going to look at the modes, they function in a way that they're not going to take under consideration that you're killing animals, but you're feeding homeless people. If you're killing, you have to suffer the reaction. This is what it is, you know. And the only person who can help us, who is our dearest friend, is Krishna. So instead of being situated in the modes, we should try to get out. An intelligent person, they places their faith in Paramatma, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I remember I was walking today in just here in the neighborhood, and I was chanting on my beds, just the Maha Mantra, chanting the morning practice, the morning routines for the monks. We practice, you know. And I was chanting with a bead bag, and I saw a guy walking the dog. You know, the dog was unleashed. It always makes me kind of worried. What if it jumps at me? You know?
Yeah, me too. I can't
I'm not really afraid of animals. I don't want to be unclean, you know, because they obviously the dogs is. And so what happened is that I saw him carrying a bag, and he was picking up the stool of living with a dog. And I just was thinking in comparison, you come out of this material world in the morning and you are going to be carrying a bead bag and chanting attentively the rounds on the beads, or you're going to be reciting the name of your dog and picking up the stool and carrying it in the back. So you make the choice, you know, every morning you make the choice. So people actually, if you look at the life of any normal human being who lives in San Diego, you can see that they actually don't know anything. They just understand that they are alive, and that's it. That's all they know. They just understand that they are alive. And the modes of nature, they just making them go and do things. If the modes are telling them, go eat, they go and find food, go eat. Modes of nature, you're sleepy right now, go sleep. They go sleep, you know. And if they're telling them, get married, you got to get married right now, they go and get married. No, actually, this is not the person you want to be with. Get divorced. Go get divorced. And they go and get divorced, you know. So this is the suffering that we experience by the modes of nature. But once a person like this come to experience the higher taste, the mercy of Krishna, then their life is completely changed. Completely. And you can see it even within book distribution. Sometimes people are walking so fast and it's very hard to stop them. Once you stop them at the table, you hand them a book, they completely forget where they were going. And they turn and go in a different direction, you know, walking away with books, you know. And so to become free is to see the truth, and that is only possible if we come to serve Krishna. So we chant Hare Krishna, and doors of liberation will be open for us. And this is, as far as Bhagavad Gita, this is what I prepared for today. But I have, because we have more time for class, I have Shishupanishad that I brought with me, and Shishupanishad. This is by Prabhupada. Shishupanishad, yeah. And I have one of my favorite mantras that I'd like to, if that's okay, to read to you. Until what time do we have to speak?
Usually gets over at 7:45, right?
Mm.
It's almost 8 now.
Almost 8.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, you can read the mantra.
Okay, so
Explain it to us.
okay, because I know you guys do a Tulsi Puja after this,
No,
and then
we're not doing it today.
not doing it today. Okay, same. Okay. So mantra number 10. Anyad vachur vidyayam nayad ahura vidyayam iti shushuma dhiranam yanastat vichitakshire. The meaning is that the wise have explained that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and that is, different result is obtained from the culture of nations. And as advised in chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, one should culture knowledge in the following way. And there's many ways that is explained by Srila Prabhupada, in which we can culture knowledge as 18 ways. So do we have time for this? 18 ways? Okay. First one is one should become a perfect gentleman and learn to give proper respect to others. Srila Prabhupada, commentaries by Srila Prabhupada. Proper respect to other people. So we should be not agitating the people with our speech, with our behavior. And one should not pose himself as a religionist, simply for name and fame. Also, one should not become a source of anxiety to others by the actions of the body, by thoughts of his mind, or by his words. And one should learn forbearance even in the face of provocation from others. Because people, in this age of Kali Yuga, people are very envious. People are very envious. That's why the disturbances will happen, especially for those who are trying to seriously practice Krishna consciousness. People will threaten. People will use words to offend you. So we should be undisturbed. And one should learn to avoid duplicity in his dealings with others. One should search out a bona fide spiritual master who can lead him gradually to the stage of spiritual realization. And one must submit himself to such a spiritual master, render him service, and ask relevant questions. In order to approach the platform of self-realization, one must follow the regulative principles enjoined in the revealed scriptures. So we should study the scriptures, and we should apply them in life. Achar and prachar, right? One must be fixed in the tenets of the revealed scriptures, and one should completely refrain from practices which are detrimental to the interest of self-realization. The 10th is one should not accept more than he requires for the maintenance of the body, and one should not falsely identify himself with the gross material body, nor should one consider those who are related to his body to be his own. Like in instructions of Rishabhadeva, if we are too much attached to the homage to your children and wife, this is the greatest knot. This is the greatest attachment that people are dealing with in this present age, and all the time. So that one should not. One should always remember that as long as he is a material body, he must face the miseries of repeated birth, old age, disease, and death. There is no use in making plans to get rid of these miseries of the material body. And the best course is to find out the means by which one may regain his spiritual identity. So we should always expect that within this material body, even if we become very advanced in yoga, we'll always face difficulties. And the best course of action is just to learn how to tolerate them. One should not be attached to more than the necessities of life required for spiritual advancement. So we shouldn't overcollect. And one should not be more attached to wife, children, and home than the revealed scriptures ordain. And at some point, we should even give up the family life. One should not be happy or distressed over desirables and undesirables, knowing that such feelings are just created by the mind. One should become an unalloyed devotee of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and serve him with rapt attention. And one should develop a liking for residence in a secluded place with a calm and quiet atmosphere, favorable for spiritual culture, and one should avoid congested places where non-devotees congregate. And Prabhupada would always stress out the point that we should give up the association of the karmis, the Buddhas, So the next one is one should become a scientist, a philosopher, and conduct research into spiritual knowledge, recognizing that spiritual knowledge is permanent, whereas material knowledge ends with the death of the body. And I was here in a class of Srila Prabhupada today in the morning, and he was saying that to be a brahmachari means not to become an erudite scholar, but to actually be able to
subdue the mind and control your senses. That's the idea. And of course, it's there to become, well versed in Shastra. We should do this, but to become a scholar of Sanskrit or of always knowing the Shastra very well is kind of secondary. It's important, but it's secondary. This is what Srila Prabhupada said. And so this 18 items combined to form a gradual process by which real knowledge can be developed. Except for this, all other methods are considered to be in the category of omniscience. So, let me see this. Okay, I guess we'll finish that. And if you guys have any questions, maybe you can ask something.
Was Prabhupada married? No.
Yeah.
He was married.
Yes. He was married, and then he accepted, I think he accepted Vanaprastha, right? And sannyasa eventually. Sannyasa, yeah. And I remember actually, he had a liking for one particular Mataji, and she was, from a material point of view, she was very attractive. And his spiritual teacher, I think he was a spiritual teacher, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that, and then there was another kind of, you can say, candidate, and she was not so attractive. And he said that you should not fall for an attractive, because it would be hard to, the bondage, the attraction would be so strong that it would be hard to give up eventually family life. So this Prabhupada followed that instruction. When is Dimitri? Yeah. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Bol. Jai.